get paid, manage risk, scale up. We do not just fly, we on the sky, sky commander, die. See, above, go, we on, get ahead.
Okay, let's get started. Imagine this, and I'm talking directly to you listening right now. You're incredibly skilled at what you do.
Right. You're like the absolute best in your field.
Exactly. So naturally, word gets around, you get more clients, you hire more people to handle the load, you buy more equipment.
And you'd think that would feel amazing.
Yeah, but instead of feeling like a successful business owner sitting on top of this well-oiled machine, you feel like a firefighter.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well.
Right. You're constantly answering frantic text messages at 6 in the morning. You're fixing other people's totally avoidable mistakes.
And apologizing to clients for delays.
Yes. Delays that just shouldn't be happening. You set out to scale this incredible skill you have, but instead, scaling feels like a trap.
It really does.
The more you grow, the more exhausted you become. So, why does that happen?
Well, that specific feeling of exhaustion is basically the definition of diagnostic muddy waters for professionals everywhere. It's a universal pain point.
It really is everywhere.
Yeah, people completely mistake being busy or, being in demand for having a business that is actually scalable.
And that exact trap is the mission of our deep dive today. We are unpacking this massive, truly fascinating stack of operational manuals, regulatory frameworks, and business scaling insights.
It's a really dense stack of sources, but it's so incredibly valuable.
Definitely. Now, to give you some context, these specific documents are focused heavily on the commercial drone industry, which, as we'll see, is undergoing some wild landscape-altering changes right now.
Oh, absolutely massive changes.
But I want to be incredibly clear right up front. This deep dive is not just about drones.
Not at all. If you look closely at these frameworks, what you're actually reading is a masterclass.
A masterclass in what? Exactly.
In how any skill-based professional, whether you're an architect, a high-end consultant, a software developer, or, a commercial drone pilot, how you transition from being an individual doer of the work to a true business leader.
The person who orchestrates the work.
Exactly.
So we are setting some serious stakes today. The core problem staring us in the face across all these documents is that a solo operator survives entirely on hustle and memory.
Yeah, and caffeine.
Right, hustle, memory, and caffeine. But a real company requires orchestration. So we're going to explore the critical mindset shifts required to build a system that produces excellence repeatedly.
Without relying on one heroic person sitting behind the controls, sweating it out every single day.
Because if we don't make that mental shift, what happens?
Well, the business eventually just collapses under its own weight. It's a harsh reality. But the raw talent of the founder actually becomes the ceiling of the company.
Wow, the talent becomes the ceiling.
Yeah. The better you are at the core skill, the harder it is to let go. And the faster you become the very bottleneck choking your own business.
Okay, let's start right there. Unpacking this concept of what's called the illusion of scale.
It's such a pervasive myth.
It really is. We have to dismantle this idea that scaling simply means doing more volume, because it's so incredibly easy to look at your calendar and see twice as many jobs booked as last year.
Right. And you look at your bank account, see twice as much revenue, and pat yourself on the back.
You think, I did it. I scaled my business. But when you dig into the operational definitions in our sources, that is just growth. It is absolutely not scale.
What's fascinating here is the precise, almost mathematical distinction these operational manuals make between growth and real scale.
How do they define it?
Well, growth is just more. It's heavier. It's more jobs, more clients, more drones in the air, more invoices to send.
Okay, so what is real scale then?
Real scale is the ability of the business to absorb that additional heavy workload without the quality, the safety, the legality, or the client experience falling apart.
Oh, I see.
Think about it. If you double your client list, but your internal error rate triples, and you personally are working 80-hour weeks just to keep the wheels from flying off the wagon.
You haven't scaled a single thing.
Exactly. You've just become a larger, sloppier, and vastly more stressed version of your old self.
It is brutal.
Real scale means your internal systems are actually improving faster than the external complexity is growing.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more, because there is a metric introduced in these pages that completely blew my mind.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, It's a way to measure whether you are actually scaling or just growing, and has nothing to do with revenue.
Right.
It has nothing to do with profit margins or headcount. It's called the founder rescue rate.
Yes, the founder rescue rate. It is a brilliant and honestly kind of brutal mirror to hold up to any organization.
It totally cuts right through the vanity metrics.
It really does.
The founder rescue rate essentially asks one simple, terrifying question. How often did a mission, a project, or a client deliverable only stay on track because the founder personally jumped in at the 11th hour to save it?
Exactly. I mean, picture a typical week. If the founder has to constantly step in, maybe they're smoothing over a client misunderstanding that an employee caused.
Or they're noticing a critical equipment maintenance issue that everyone else on the team just walked right past.
Right. Or they are staying up until midnight to color correct or re-edit a deliverable because the team's output just wasn't up to the company standard.
If that's happening, that company hasn't scaled.
Not at all. What is actually happening is that the company is secretly borrowing the founder's nervous system.
Borrowing the founder's nervous system. That is such a vivid way to put it.
It's the truth, though. The founder acts as this hidden, unacknowledged battery pack for the entire operation.
Just constantly absorbing all the uncertainty, the friction, and the risk.
Yeah. The employees aren't really running the system. The founder's running the employees.
And that leads directly into what the texts identify as the chief firefighter trap.
Oh, the chief firefighter. This is where so many people get stuck.
You start out as a great pilot, or a great coder, or a great designer. You are agile. You improvise.
You solve problems incredibly fast in the field, and you rescue jobs when things go sideways.
But as you add people to your team, if you're still relying on your own memory and your own hustle to keep things moving, you want a CEO.
You're just the chief firefighter.
Oh.
You schedule more jobs, you answer more frantic calls, you solve more complex issues.
But the entire company is still terrifyingly dependent on your physical brain being the hidden glue holding the whole house of cards together.
And if we look at how the most successful operators actually survive this and break out of the trap, there is a clear 5-stage progression.
A deliberate evolution of identity.
Yes, exactly. It starts at stage 1, which they call the skilled pilot.
Okay, so what does that look like?
At this stage, you can do the job perfectly yourself. Your competitive advantage in the market is purely your personal physical competence. You are the talent.
Right. You are the one holding the controller, making the magic happen.
Then you evolve to stage 2, which is the reliable pilot. You're not just talented, you're dependable.
So clients start to trust your rhythm.
Yeah, they know you show up on time, your gear works, and you don't cause drama. But you are still fundamentally just an individual contributor.
The ceiling is still your own personal capacity.
Right. So to break through that, you have to reach stage 3, which is the mission lead.
What changes at stage 3?
Now you're running a project that involves more than just yourself. You might be briefing a visual observer, coordinating movements with a client on site, or managing a secondary camera operator.
So you're no longer just holding the drone controller, you are holding the plan.
Exactly. You are managing the environment, not just the machine.
You're starting to look outward rather than just staring at your own screen.
Precisely. Then comes stage 4, and this is the massive, painful leap for most people, the operator.
Why is it so painful?
Because at this stage, you are entirely removed from the physical act of flying. Your job is to turn incoming chaotic client requests into controlled, predictable operations.
You start thinking entirely in terms of readiness, legal permissions, asset assignments, quality standards, and compliance records.
Right. The hallmark of stage 4 is that you can swap one pilot for another, and the client receives an identical, high-quality result.
Because the process is doing the heavy lifting, not the individual's raw talent.
Exactly. And finally, you reach stage 5. The business leader.
The top of the mountain.
Yeah. At this level, you are building the machine itself. You are looking at market trends, creating the overarching standards, designing the workflows.
Making performance repeatable at a massive volume across multiple regions.
You are no longer the person doing the mission. You are the person who makes the entire mission system trustworthy.
Okay, I want to push back on this progression a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
Or at least I'll play devil's advocate for the people listening who take immense pride in their craft. Let's use an analogy. Say I'm a master chef. I've spent 20 years perfecting my craft. I opened my first restaurant, and it's a huge hit precisely because of my recipes, my palate, and my absolute perfectionism on the line.
Right, you're the star.
I'm there every night. Eventually, I open a second restaurant across town, But I find myself constantly running out of the kitchen at both places, literally driving back and forth to bus tables when they get backed up.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. I'm fixing the reservation book when the host messes up, apologizing to VIPs, and constantly adjusting the seasoning on the line because the sous chefs aren't getting it quite right.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Now, based on what we just discussed, I have a sky-high founder rescue rate. But isn't that just a sign of a boss who deeply cares?
This raises an important question, really.
Because shouldn't my clients want the master chef touching every single plate? Isn't that why they come to my restaurant in the first place?
It's arguably the most seductive trap that passionate, highly skilled founders fall into. Caring about your craft is essential, yes. But relying on a heroic save from the founder to get through a Tuesday dinner service is not leadership. It is a fragile streak of luck, masquerading as a business strategy.
A fragile streak of luck. Wow.
Let's really pull apart your chef analogy. What happens when that master chef inevitably gets the flu? Or what happens when a city health inspector shows up at the second restaurant to do a surprise audit? But the chef is currently at the first restaurant frantically trying to fix a broken reservation system.
The standard completely collapses. The kitchen falls apart because the person holding it together isn't in the room.
Exactly. Scaling a business isn't about working harder, driving faster between locations, or caring more than everyone else.
What is it about then?
It is entirely about replacing founder memory with organizational memory. It's about replacing the founder's unique, unteachable talent with unbreakable company standards.
So if the chef has to physically taste every single bowl of soup before it leaves the kitchen, the system is fundamentally broken.
Yes, you don't have a business. You have a highly stressful, exhausting, high-wire act.
So the promotion from pilot to operator or from chef to restaurateur isn't just a fancy title change you put on LinkedIn.
Not at all. It represents a fundamental change in where problems get solved.
How so?
Well, a pilot solves problems in the field as they happen. An operations manager builds a system that solves those problems before the team ever gets to the field.
That perfectly transitions us to the actual mental shift required to pull this off.
Yeah, you can't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be an operator now.
Right. It requires rewiring how your brain processes the job. The deep dive materials talk extensively about moving from seeing the specific finical act like flying the drone or writing the code to seeing what they call the whole board.
Yes, the whole board. The entire center of gravity for your professional life has to shift.
It's a profound realignment, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, the center of gravity for a pilot is always the aircraft. Where is it? What's its battery level? What's the wind doing to it?
Very immediate physical deterrence.
Exactly. But for an operations manager, the center of gravity is the mission system itself. It's moving your focus away from the physical reality of the joysticks.
And zooming out to look at the architecture of the entire workflow that put those joysticks in someone's hands in the first place.
Precisely.
There is this fascinating difference in vocabulary highlighted in the text that really drove this home for me. It says that pilots think in verbs, while operators think in conditions.
Oh, the concept verbs versus conditions is probably one of the most powerful mental models in this entire stack of materials.
Really? Let's unpack that.
Think about how a pilot goes through their day. A pilot thinks, I need to launch, climb, orbit the building, inspect the roof, descend, and land.
Those are all verbs. They are actions.
Right, and verbs make you feel busy. They give you a rush of adrenaline because you are doing something physical.
But an operations manager isn't thinking about the physical actions at all.
No, an operations manager thinks in conditions. Is the pilot qualified? Is the team fully briefed? Is the aircraft serviceable?
Is the airspace authorized? Has the data been captured?
Exactly. Is the final file archived? Those are conditions. They represent completed states of being.
Verbs make you busy, but conditions make your organization reliable.
Well said.
So the fundamental question a professional asks themselves has to shift entirely. You have to stop waking up and asking, what do I need to do next?
And start asking, what must be true before the next thing is allowed to happen?
What must be true? That is the golden rule of operations.
It really is. What must be true before we even put this job on the calendar? The mission must be formally classified.
What must be true before we launch the drone?
The aircraft must be proven serviceable, and the airspace must be legally authorized. It's a completely different much more disciplined operating philosophy.
And to manage all of those conditions, the operator has to play this massive game of 3D chess across what the materials call the whole board.
Yeah, but it's not just one board.
Right, it's actually 8 simultaneous boards that an operator has to monitor.
8 boards all at once.
Instead of just listing them out rapidly, let's really put ourselves in the shoes of someone trying to manage this complexity.
Okay, I like that.
Imagine you're standing in a control room and you've got these 8 glass screens around you.
Let's build that control room. The first screen you are looking at is the people board.
And it's not just a roster of names, right?
No, you're constantly analyzing who is legally qualified for this exact type of complex mission. Who is mentally sharp today?
Who just came off a brutal 3-day shoot and is suffering from fatigue.
Exactly. Putting the wrong person on a highly technical job is an operational failure before the drone even powers on.
Okay, so you found the right person, but then you have to look at the second screen, the equipment board.
And this isn't just looking in the closet and saying, yep, we own a drone.
Right. It's asking, is this exact specific aircraft legally compliant? Is its registration current?
Is it appropriate for the specific thermal sensor the client requested?
And if we fly it in these conditions, are we creating a massive maintenance debt that will ground us next week?
Precisely. You are managing the life cycle of the gear, not just its availability.
Then you turn to the rule and place board.
Yeah, so what specific legal category of operation does this fall into? What airspace jurisdiction applies here?
What physical site hazards exist, like radio frequency interference or local ground traffic that the pilot might not see until they arrive?
Right. And while you're figuring out the airspace, you also have to manage the client and scope board.
And this one seems like a minefield.
Oh, it is. You aren't just reading the contract. You are actively interpreting what the client really needs versus what they think they are buying.
And you have to anticipate the inevitable moment on site when the client taps the pilot on the shoulder.
Yes, and ask if they can just quickly fly over the adjacent building too.
Which happens on almost every single job.
Every single time. And if the operator hasn't set clear boundaries on that client board, the pilot might say yes and accidentally break federal airspace laws.
Wow. Okay, then we have the timing board.
This is where you look at the schedule and ask, can we squeeze this job in without breaking another commitment?
If we accept this rush job, does it force our pilot to rush their pre-flight briefing?
Exactly. Does it eliminate our buffer for bad weather?
Which bleeds right into the quality board.
Yeah, you have to define what good actually means for this specific job before it happens.
What specific data points get checked before we hand the files to the client? What would embarrass us as a company if the client saw it?
And you can't prove any of that without the information and evidence board.
Right, what needs to be documented?
What logs need to be retained and stored so they are instantly retrievable if an insurance adjuster or a regulator comes knocking 3 months from now.
And finally, you have the learning board.
An operator is constantly looking at the past to protect the future.
Asking things like, what keeps going wrong on our missions? Which safety checklist are the pilots routinely ignoring?
Right. Or which internal processes become too loose and needs tightening.
It's staggering when you lay it out like that. An operations manager is literally watching all 8 of those complex boards at the exact same time.
Continually adjusting for variables, even when there is only one single drone actually up in the air.
And their time horizons are totally fundamentally different from the pilots, too.
Oh, absolutely. A pilot in the field is entirely absorbed in the present.
They are thinking about the next 3 minutes of flight, or maybe the lifespan of the battery currently in the drone.
But an operator's mind is living in the future. They're thinking about, this week do we have the airspace waivers approved for Thursday's job?
They're thinking about this month. Are our standard operating procedures actually holding up?
Or are our pilots slowly drifting into dangerous, complacent habits?
And they are thinking about this entire year. Can we scale our volume by 50% without a federal regulator auditing us and finding massive weak spots?
That longer time horizon is such a critical distinction.
Because a pilot can be absolutely brilliant in the moment, they can capture the most breathtaking cinematic shot imaginable.
But they can still severely damage the company if they skip their documentation, flew outside the authorized airspace, or misunderstood the client's actual technical requirements.
The operator has to see all those hidden consequences long before the pilot ever leaves the office.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to bring in another analogy here to really test this concept.
I'm ready.
Listening to you describe the operator, it sounds exactly like the difference between a Hollywood stunt double and a film director.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
The stunt double is highly skilled, incredibly brave, and focused entirely on executing a specific physical action perfectly and safely in the moment.
Right, jumping out of the moving car, throwing the punch, landing on the mat.
But the director isn't jumping out of cars. The director is managing the lighting crew, tracking the daily budget, ensuring union rules aren't violated.
Planning the camera angles, and making sure this one punch actually makes sense for the overall story.
Right, but here's my genuine question, and it's a pushback I hear from creatives all the time.
Let's hear it.
Doesn't this obsessive conditional thinking, this relentless focus on what must be true before you act, completely kill the agility and the art of the job? I mean, imagine you're out in the field. The sun is setting, the light is absolutely perfect, it's a once-in-a-lifetime shot.
Okay. Painting a picture.
But your rigid company checklist says you need a secondary signature before you launch, and the person who needs to sign it is in the bathroom.
Right.
Don't you just lose the shot? What if you just need to get the job done and capture the magic?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a completely valid fear.
It feels like the systems get in the way of the result.
Improvisation in the field, that ability to react to the perfect sunset, is absolutely sometimes necessary to capture a great result.
So you agree?
Yes, but here is the hard truth of business. Standardization is necessary for scale. If your entire business model relies on a lone genius improvising every single time the light changes, you can never, ever hire a second crew.
Because that second crew won't have your exact instincts.
Precisely. You can never promise a consistent, reliable result to a corporate client who needs absolute predictability.
They won't know how to improvise the way you do.
They might see the same sunset and make a wildly dangerous decision trying to capture it.
That makes a lot of sense.
The sources make a truly critical distinction here that answers your stunt double question. They separate risk into two categories:
What are they?
flying risk and operational risk. Pilots, like your stunt double, are extensively trained to watch out for flying risks.
So they are looking for the tree branch, the power line, a flock of birds, a sudden gust of wind.
They manage the immediate physical environment. Operators absolutely care about flying risks, but they spend their time watching for much slower, much quieter hazards.
What does a slow hazard look like?
An operational risk is a pilot whose federal certification recency is quietly expiring next Tuesday, and nobody noticed.
Oh, wow.
It's a safety checklist that the team has started treating as a joke, ticking the boxes off after they finish the flight while they're driving home instead of before they launch.
Or a client who keeps casually texting the pilot directly to change the deliverables, bypassing the official contract.
Exactly. Those things don't crash a drone today. But if you ignore operational risk to favor in the moment cowboy agility, the company will eventually fail.
It will fail legally, financially, or reputationally.
Without a doubt.
Wow. Okay, that really puts the agility argument into perspective.
It's tough for creatives to hear, but it's true.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about the theory of conditional thinking, the 8 boards, and the mindset of an operator.
But what's fascinating is that as you dive deeper into these materials, you realize this isn't just a philosophical debate.
Right. We have to look at how the real world actually forces this mindset upon you.
The sources dive incredibly deep into the raw regulatory realities in both the United States and Canada.
And it turns out these operational systems aren't just neat theories pulled from a trendy management book.
No, they are strict, unforgiving legal mandates. The law does not care about your vibes, your agility, or how much you care about your craft.
It only cares about your systems.
It really does. And the contrast between how Canada and the U.S. are handling this right now is incredibly illuminating.
It really shows anyone trying to understand this where the future of commercial operations is heading.
Canada is quietly, but very firmly, telling the entire world exactly what scalable regulation looks like.
Let's really break down Canada's massive regulatory shift in 2025. The documents heavily reference something called SOR 2025-70.
Yes, that's the big one.
Set the stage for us. What exactly happened in April and November of 2025?
To understand the shift, you have to look at what it was like before November 2025.
Okay, what was the old system?
If you were a Canadian drone operator and you wanted to do complex work, something highly lucrative like flying beyond visual line of sight, or BVLOS, to inspect a massive pipeline.
You couldn't just do it, right?
No, you had to go to the government and get a special flight operations certificate, an SFOC.
And that was a difficult process.
It was a painstaking process where your flight was treated as a special exception to the normal rules. You had to beg for permission every time.
But the 2025 regulatory changes wiped that slate clean.
Yes, and created a brand new framework called Level 1 Complex Operations for lower-risk BVLOS flights.
And this is where the entire legal philosophy shifted, right? From regulating the person holding the controller to regulating the company cutting the checks.
Exactly. This is the watershed moment. To conduct these complex operations now, Transport Canada decided it is no longer sufficient for a pilot to just pass a multiple-choice test and prove their personal competence.
So what do they have to do?
The organization itself, the business entity, must hold an RPOC.
That stands for an RPAS operator certificate, correct?
Yes, and the requirements to get an RPOC are no joke. The law legally mandates that your company must have a formal documented operations manual.
Wow.
You must legally designate an accountable executive who bears ultimate responsibility.
You must have clear, documented maintenance responsibilities, a formal training program, and an active safety risk management process.
Transport Canada is legally forcing you to stop acting like a solo pilot with a stack of invoices and start acting like a structured miniature airline.
They are entirely regulating the organization behind the sticks.
Precisely.
That is a massive, industry-altering paradigm shift. It literally outlaws the chief firefighter model for complex work.
It does. You just can't operate that way anymore.
Now, let's look south of the border at the U.S. context.
Let's do it.
As of our current date, March 18th, 2026, the U.S. framework, specifically the FAA's Part 107 rules, is still highly what the sources call RPIC-centered.
Yes, the RPIC, the Remote Pilot in Command.
What does that mean in practice?
Under the FAA's Part 107, the legal center of gravity is still heavily focused on that one individual pilot standing in the field.
So the individual holds the liability.
Yes, the RPIC is the absolute final authority for the operation.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, the FAA looks at the RPIC.
They are directly, personally responsible for ensuring the aircraft is safe to fly and the airspace is clear.
Exactly. Part 107 doesn't formally mandate an overarching airline-style company certificate for standard daily operations, the way Canada's new RPOC does.
But it's not like the Wild West either.
No, definitely not.
The sources talk extensively about the digital infrastructure the U.S. is building, like LANC and remote ID.
LANC is huge. It's the digital system for getting near-instant airspace authorization around airports.
And remote ID is basically a digital license plate that the drone constantly broadcasts while flying.
Right. Plus, the materials heavily reference the proposed Part 108 BVLOS rule.
Now, as of today, March 18th, 2026, Part 108 is still just a proposed rule.
Yes, but when you read the tea leaves, it clearly signals the FAA is moving in the exact same direction as Canada.
Towards scalable, operator-level, systems-based thinking.
Exactly. Even though the U.S. is currently more pilot-centered for basic visual line-of-sight operations, the direction of regulatory travel is undeniable.
If you want to scale a drone business in the U.S. today, you have to build robust internal systems.
You have to manage FAA waivers, track LANC authorizations across dozens of jobs, and ensure fleet-wide remote ID compliance.
You can't just hand a guy a drone, tell him to go shoot a construction site and hope for the best.
The digital footprint is just too large now.
And speaking of different regulatory environments, the text mentions a specific, highly dangerous trap that I think is so relevant for anyone trying to expand their business internationally.
Oh, the cross-border trap.
It introduces a very catchy mnemonic. Home rules do not travel.
Such an important rule to remember.
Let's build a scenario here. What actually happens when a highly experienced, fully certified Canadian pilot, someone who flies complex missions every day,
Okay, real pro.
wins a lucrative contract down in the U.S. and just assumes they can toss their drone in the truck, cross the border, and start flying?
If they do that, they are either grounding themselves immediately upon arrival, or they are actively breaking federal law the second the drone lifts off.
It is a harsh reality check.
It really is. The FAA does not currently recognize foreign remote pilot certificates.
So it doesn't matter how incredibly skilled that Canadian pilot is.
Or how many Advanced Transport Canada certificates they hold in their wallet. It doesn't matter.
To fly commercially in the U.S., they generally need to go through the FAA's specific Part 107 remote pilot pathway to legally act as the pilot in command.
And the exact same friction applies in reverse, too.
Really? U.S. pilots face the same thing.
Oh, yeah. U.S. pilots who think they can just pop up to Toronto for a quick weekend shoot often find themselves trapped in complex SFOC regulatory pathways.
Orders punish sloppy assumptions. That's a great line from the text.
It's perfectly stated.
So, to manage all this legal readiness and avoid these massive compliance traps, the sources provide a really handy, memorable framework.
The 5P model.
Yes. I want to walk through this because it feels like the ultimate checklist for the conditional thinking we talked about earlier.
It is the perfect distillation of conditional thinking.
The 5 Ps stand for pilot, platform, place, permission, and paperwork.
When a new job request comes across the desk, the operations manager must systematically verify every single one of those Ps before a single piece of equipment is packed.
Let's look at them. Pilot. Do we have a pilot with the specific legal certificate?
And more importantly, do they have current legal recency to fly?
Platform. Is this specific drone registered? Is it remote ID compliant?
And do the maintenance logs prove it is in a condition for safe operation?
Place. Have we done a digital site survey?
What are the physical and airspace hazards at this specific address?
Permission. Do we have an approved LANC authorization or a specific FAA waiver or a Canadian RPOC authorizing this exact type of flight?
And finally, paperwork. Are the pre-flight briefings, the maintenance logs, and the client deliverables properly formatted and documented?
The rule is absolute right. If even one of those 5 magnets is missing from the dispatch board, the mission does not launch. Period.
Absolutely, no exceptions.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because when I read the sections detailing LANC and remote ID in the US, it honestly felt to me like getting a VIP wristband at an exclusive nightclub.
That's a funny way to look at it, but I see what you mean.
You download an app on your phone, you request to fly in the controlled airspace near an airport. The app processes it, the screen turns bright green.
And meanwhile, your drone's remote ID is broadcasting your location to the authorities.
Right. So if I have that green LANC approval on my screen and my remote ID is on and functioning, aren't I completely cleared to fly?
This is a huge point of confusion for a lot of people.
Doesn't the app essentially serve as the government saying, you are legal, go ahead and do your job?
I am so incredibly glad you brought that up because the sources explicitly call this out, labeling it as myth number 3.
Myth number 3.
And it is arguably the most dangerous misconception in the entire commercial industry right now. A green screen on a LANC app does not mean you are legal to fly.
Wait, really? Let me make sure I understand this.
LANC opens the gate to the airspace, but it does not fly the mission for you, and it absolutely does not guarantee that the rest of your operation is legal.
So if I'm thinking about this right, I could have an officially approved FAA airspace authorization sitting right there on my phone, and I could still be flying completely illegally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
How is that possible?
LANC provides one thing and one thing only: airspace authorization. It is checking the place and permission boxes of the 5 Ps.
But it doesn't check the other 3.
No, the LANC app does not know who you are. It does not check if your personal pilot recency expired 3 weeks ago.
I see.
It does not check your maintenance logs to see if your aircraft is actually airworthy.
It does not know if you are attempting to fly at night without the legally required anti-collision lighting that must be visible for 3 statute miles.
Exactly. This is the ultimate lesson in conditional thinking. Pilot legality or airspace clearance does not equal total mission legality.
You have to evaluate the entire package every single time.
Every single time.
Okay, that is terrifying, but it makes perfect sense.
It keeps you on your toes.
So because the legal, regulatory, and financial stakes are that incredibly high, you simply cannot run a commercial business by just looking at a Google Calendar.
And saying, hey, who is free on Thursday afternoon to go fly a drone?
Right. You need a rigid, highly predictable pipeline to manage and digest all this complexity.
And that realization brings us to the operational core of these materials. Building the machine.
Building the machine. The sources detail a comprehensive 10-stage mission flow that is designed to take a frantic, chaotic scramble and turn it into a calm, professional company.
It's a brilliant, battle-tested blueprint. The flow lays out the entire life cycle of a job, from the moment the phone rings to the moment the invoice is paid.
Let's look at the overarching structure first. The 10 stages are intake, classification, resource matching, authorization, and readiness.
Mission package creation, scheduling, field execution, data handling and QC, client delivery, and finally, records and review.
It is incredibly comprehensive. It covers literally every second of the business.
It really does leave no stone unturned.
But we don't have time to go deep into all 10, so I want to zero in on the stages where operators make the most fatal mistakes.
Good idea.
Let's start with stage 2, classification. The text makes a very bold claim here.
It says that a strong, mature operation always classifies a mission before it ever attempts to schedule it.
Why is the act of classification the ultimate test of a true operator?
Think of classification as the sorting hat for your entire business. If you don't know exactly what legal and operational box a mission fits into, you simply do not know what rules apply to it.
Imagine you operate in Canada. A client calls and wants a pipeline inspection.
You must definitively know.
Yeah.
Is this flight going to be basic, advanced, level 1 complex, or does it require a full SFOC?
Or if you are in the U.S., you must know, is this a standard Part 107 daylight flight, or does it require a special waiver?
Right, or a complex LANC authorization or night compliance gear.
If you make the amateur mistake of scheduling the job on Tuesday before you classify it, you create a domino effect of operational failures.
You might accidentally assign a junior pilot who doesn't hold the right advanced certification.
Or you might promise the client a delivery timeline that is physically impossible because the specific airspace waiver you actually need will take a minimum of 7 days for the FAA to process.
Classification draws the hard boundaries for everything else that follows.
That makes perfect sense. If you don't know what the job actually is, you can't possibly know how to staff it.
Which leads perfectly into stage 3, resource matching.
The point the materials make here is that assigning a pilot to a job based merely on who happens to have a free afternoon on their calendar creates what the text brilliantly calls expensive cowboys.
Yes, the expensive cowboy. It's a fantastic term.
So how do you avoid creating them?
To avoid this, an operations manager cannot rely on memory. They need a live, constantly updated qualification matrix.
So when you match resources, you aren't just matching an available warm body to an open time slot.
No, you are matching specific, proven competencies to specific mission requirements.
You have to ask, does this pilot have current legal recency?
Have they ever actually flown this specific, highly sensitive thermal sensor before? Or are they going to be learning on the job?
Are they tactful and good at handling difficult, high-pressure, client-facing situations?
Or are they technically brilliant, but better suited for solo remote work where they don't have to talk to anyone?
Do they have a track record of rushing and needing their data recaptured?
If you delegate a job without consulting this matrix, you aren't managing resources. You are just guessing and hoping.
Now, let's talk about stage 6, scheduling. I honestly have to challenge the text on this one.
Okay, let's hear the challenge.
The manual states very dramatically that scheduling is not calendar Tetris, it is risk management.
It does say that, yes.
But let's be real for a second. Isn't scheduling literally just playing calendar Tetris?
How do you mean?
You look at your week, you see an open slot at 2:00 p.m. on Wednesday. You have a client job that takes roughly 2 hours, so you plug the job into the 2:00 p.m. slot.
Right.
It fits perfectly. Why does managing a calendar require risk management?
What's fascinating here is how deeply hidden operational risk actually is until it bites you.
Hidden risk.
Let's really analyze your 2:00 p.m. slot scenario. On paper, a 2-hour block is a 2-hour block.
Sure.
But if you blindly plug that 2:00 p.m. job in right after a 10 a.m. job that happens to be 50 miles away on the other side of the city, you aren't just filling a colored block on a digital calendar.
You are actively creating a physical and operational reality for your team.
Exactly. You have to ask the conditional questions. Does that 50-mile travel time blend into the time the pilot desperately needs to physically cool and recharge their drone batteries?
Yes, if they are driving, they aren't charging, or at least not charging efficiently.
Exactly. And does that compressed window eliminate the time the pilot needs to do a proper, unhurried site survey and safety briefing upon arrival at the 2:00 p.m. site?
What happens if the weather delays the morning job by just 30 minutes?
Does the pilot now feel immense, unspoken pressure from the company to speed on the highway to make the afternoon job on time?
I hadn't thought of that. A weak, inexperienced scheduler just looks at the blocks and asks, can we fit it in?
A strong operations manager looks at the dependencies and asks, does this schedule force our field team to borrow against our safety margins?
The schedule itself can become a massive safety risk if it isn't intentionally designed with realistic buffers.
That's exactly right.
That is such a subtle but profound point.
And as your business scales and you are scheduling more and more volume, you inevitably have to delegate.
The sources outline this fascinating concept called the delegation ladder, which proves that you don't just hand the keys to a brand new pilot on day one and walk away crossing your fingers.
It's a staged process with 5 very distinct levels.
Right. It's crucial to understand that delegation is not simply handing work away, it's handing work over inside a highly controlled system.
Level 1 on the ladder is follow the script. This is for brand new pilots.
They are given tightly defined mission packages, 0 operational variables, and strict instructions to escalate any issues immediately to the manager.
Level 2 is execute with limited discretion. Now they can make very small, localized field adjustments to get the shot.
But they have absolutely no authority to change the mission scope or alter the airspace authorizations.
Right. Level 3 is run standard missions independently. Level 4 is lead missions and mentor others.
And finally, level 5 is operate like a trusted mission lead, where they are handling highly complex work and are trusted to communicate directly and negotiate with clients on site.
But the text is fiercely clear about a prerequisite here.
Yes, none of this delegation actually works, and in fact, it backfires spectacularly, unless certain things are strictly standardized first.
Before you let anyone climb that ladder, you have to standardize the company briefing format, the quality control criteria, and even the boundaries of what pilots are allowed to say to clients.
Because if one pilot casually promises a client a 24-hour turnaround on the data, and another pilot on the same team promises a 1-week turnaround,
The client doesn't feel like they are working with a cohesive company.
they feel like they're working with a chaotic group of random freelancers who happen to share a logo.
Exactly. Delegation entirely fails when the client experiences individual pilot personality instead of consistent company process.
Okay, so let's summarize where we are. We have designed a perfect 10-stage mission flow. We have built robust delegation ladders.
We have standardizing processes to eliminate the cowboy mentality.
But there is a massive catch.
There always is.
A perfect workflow is completely useless if it only exists as an abstract idea in the founder's head.
The only way to make this beautiful flow real, trackable, and repeatable across a team is through the most universally dreaded word in the English language:
Paperwork.
paperwork.
Welcome to the reality check of business. The sources devote an enormous amount of time to this, demanding that we completely redefine how we view paperwork.
It is not administrative fluff designed to torture creatives. It is the literal operational evidence of your business.
It is the nervous system of scale. The materials state that proper documentation provides 6 pillars: clarity, control, memory, evidence, consistency, and recoverability.
And that last word, recoverability, is massive. It's the difference between a business surviving a crisis and folding overnight.
The text brilliantly describes paperwork as the organization's external brain and as a form of stored judgment.
Let's look at the most common piece of paperwork: the pre-flight checklist.
Why do we even need them?
A checklist isn't mandated because managers think pilots are unintelligent or forgetful. It is mandated because human memory is proven to be incredibly inconsistent and unreliable under pressure.
A well-designed checklist actually compresses human decision-making.
It takes 10 critical, complex things that a tired, stressed brain might accidentally skip at 6 in the morning, and it forces those thoughts through one visible, physical, undeniable gate.
And the flight log is the ultimate tool for recoverability.
Right. If something goes wrong, say a drone clips a wire, or a client complains that a specific area wasn't inspected, or a federal regulator decides to audit your operation,
The flight log provides undeniable, objective proof of what actually happened.
you aren't relying on a pilot standing there sweating saying, "I'm pretty sure I checked the airspace before I took off."
The sources actually highlight 8 specific operational failure points that emerge when this nervous system of paperwork is weak or ignored. Let's hit a few of the most dangerous ones.
The first and arguably most insidious failure point is one person doing too much.
What happens then?
When one single person handles the client intake, runs the classification, flies the mission, reviews their own data, and handles the delivery, they entirely lose their objectivity.
Errors self-approve.
Exactly. The person who physically flew the mission is psychologically the worst person to judge if the final data actually met the client's original scope.
Why? Because their brain is inherently biased toward thinking, I worked hard, I got the drone in the air, I did what I set out to do.
They can't see their own blind spots.
Another major failure point is tracking too little, which slowly but surely turns into massive legal exposure.
And assuming too much like an operator, assuming a construction site hasn't changed its layout since they flew it last year.
Or assuming a client means the exact same thing they meant last time when they asked for a quick overview video.
But the failure point that really caught my eye, the one that made me laugh because it is so true, is called checklist theater.
When I read that, I immediately thought of how every single one of us treats software terms and conditions.
Oh, that's a perfect parallel.
You download a new app, you are presented with a 50-page wall of dense legal text, you scroll furiously to the bottom as fast as humanly possible, and you click, I agree, without reading a single syllable. How on earth do you stop a team of highly experienced, highly confident pilots from trading vital pre-flight safety checklists like annoying software pop-ups that just get in their way?
It is a brilliant, highly accurate comparison. Checklist theater is a plague in aviation and operations.
How does it happen?
It happens when companies have checklists that are merely ornamental. They exist only to satisfy a lawyer or a manager.
As a result, people just pencil whip them. They furiously tick the boxes on their iPad while they're sitting in their truck after the flight is completely over.
To stop this deadly habit, operations managers have to do a few critical things. First, the checklist cannot be a bloated, generic document.
Imagine a company that uses one giant 50-point checklist for a simple 10-minute real estate photo flight.
And forces pilots to use that exact same 50-point list for a highly complex, multi-day industrial inspection.
The pilots doing the simple job will immediately realize half the items don't apply to them.
Exactly. And once they realize half the list is useless, human nature dictates they will start ignoring the whole thing.
The checklist must be lean, and it must be custom tied to the specific mission type. It has to actually be a useful tool in the moment, not a chore.
So the tool has to respect the user's time.
Yes. And second, the checklist must act as a hard, interactive decision gate. It can't just be a list of yes boxes.
If a pilot encounters a weird exception or a missing piece of gear, it must be documented right there on the list.
If you are an operations manager and you look at a stack of completed checklists from your team, and they are all perfectly filled out with 0 deviations, 0 anomalies, and 0 handwritten notes in the margins.
They are probably fake. A bad checklist process doesn't just fail to ensure safety. It actively, maliciously hides organizational drift and dangerous habits from the leadership team.
Other critical failure points mentioned include handoffs without ownership, where information is passed from the sales team to the pilot, but the actual responsibility for the outcome isn't.
Or having absolutely no change control process.
If a client walks up to a pilot on site and says, hey, while you're up there, can you just fly over the adjacent building too?
And the pilot just smiles and does it without pausing to rerun the classification and airspace authorization steps.
That is a colossal legal risk.
And unclear authority under pressure. This is a big one.
Who actually has the institutional power to look a demanding, paying client in the eye on site and say no when safety is compromised?
If that authority isn't clearly documented and supported by management, the operation becomes entirely personality-driven.
A timid pilot will say yes and break the law. An aggressive pilot will say no and alienate the client. Neither is a scalable business outcome.
To combat all of this chaos, the sources introduce what all think is the ultimate bulletproof operator model for managing paperwork.
It's 4 simple Ps. Plan it, prove it, pass it, preserve it.
It is so elegantly simple, yet so hard to execute consistently.
Plan it means completing the mission brief and the formal classification before anyone moves.
Prove it means executing the specific checklist and generating the flight logs in the field.
Pass it means executing clean handoffs from the field team to the data team, completing the QA, and managing the delivery.
And preserve it means securely archiving the files and actively documenting the lessons learned for the next job.
If you rigidly follow those 4 steps on every single job, you have built a legally and operationally defensible organization.
Okay, let's take a breath and look at the big picture. We have built these incredible, intricate systems.
We've navigated the complexities of international law. We've filled out reams of paperwork to mathematically prove we followed the laws.
We've done everything right internally.
But here is the ultimate overriding question. Why does the client actually care about any of this?
That brings us to our final major insight, the ultimate shift, where we have to pivot our perspective entirely from our internal operations to the external perception of the market.
And this is where we reveal the true monetizable value of all this hard work.
And to be perfectly frank, this is the exact moment where a lot of highly skilled, passionate pilots get their feelings profoundly hurt.
Yes, the materials lay out a very hard truth for creatives. Clients do not usually have the technical expertise to judge your flying.
The text states unequivocally that flashy flying or highly technical maneuvers are completely overrated as a sustainable business advantage.
It is a bitter pill to swallow. A pilot might come back from a shoot incredibly proud. They might spend hours bragging about how they handled a vicious crosswind.
Or how perfectly smooth and synchronized their gimbal inputs were during a highly complex sweeping orbit round a building.
And they should be proud of their skill. But the client watching the final video has absolutely no idea how physically difficult that was.
They don't know what a crosswind is. They aren't paying to admire your struggle, and they aren't paying to validate your art.
They're paying to avoid their own struggle.
Exactly.
So what are they actually buying? If I'm a client hiring a drone company, I'm not really buying drone footage.
No, the footage is just a byproduct. What they are actually buying is reduced uncertainty.
They are buying lower operational risk for their own company. They are buying a defensible, pristine record for their own projects.
The real product you are manufacturing and selling every day is confidence.
It is the confidence that the work will happen on time, that it will be entirely legal and won't get their company sued.
That your presence on their site won't create new problems for their safety managers, and that the final data will be instantly usable without any friction.
The text breaks down exactly how clients judge you into 5 distinct layers, and it completely reframes where value is created.
Layer 1 is before the job even starts. Are you responsive to their initial email? Do you ask smart, clarifying questions?
Layer 2 is during coordination. Are you easy to schedule, or do they have to hunt you down to confirm a time?
Layer 3 is on-site execution. Do you arrive looking calm, prepared, and professional?
Layer 4 is after the flight. Is the handoff of the data clean and on time?
And finally, layer 5 is after the project. Do you close the loop, send a clear invoice, and follow up?
When you look at those 5 layers, the actual act of flashy, highly skilled flying only occupies a tiny, microscopic sliver of layer 3.
Exactly. You are being judged on your business systems long before and long after you ever touch a remote controller.
And this leads to what the manuals call the trust equation. It is a formula every professional should memorize.
Competence plus clarity plus consistency minus hassle equals trust.
Competence alone, just being a great pilot, is not enough. You can literally be the most skilled pilot in the world, capable of cinematic miracles.
But if you are hard to reach, if you are vague about your delivery times, or if you consistently make the client chase you down just to get an update, you are a high-hassle vendor.
And the brutal reality of the market is that corporate clients will drop a highly competent, high-hassle vendor for a slightly less competent, zero-hassle vendor every single day of the week.
Responsiveness is highlighted as a massive factor here. The text says that responsiveness is actually used by clients as a proxy for your overall operational health.
It points out that a quick, highly professional 2-sentence reply to an email, something like, "Received, we are currently reviewing the site map and will confirm airspace clearance by 2 p.m., creates infinitely more confidence.
Far more confidence than ignoring the email for a day and then sending them a link to a 5-minute, highly produced cinematic sizzle reel of your past work.
Because clients are constantly looking for signals. If you are slow, chaotic, or vague in responding to a simple scheduling email, the client subconsciously runs a simulation in their head.
They wonder, if this company is this disorganized just trying to answer an email, what is going to happen if there's an actual physical incident on my multi-million-dollar job site?
They use your basic communication habits as a direct predictor of your operational discipline. If your emails are messy, they assume your safety checklists are messy too.
So what does this all mean in everyday, relatable terms?
I was trying to think of how I experienced this hassle versus trust dynamic as a regular consumer, and I thought about taking an Uber to the airport.
Oh, that's a good one.
When I get in the back of that car, I do not care at all about the driver's steering technique. I don't care how well they hit the apex of a turn on the highway or how efficiently they shift gears.
Or their deep knowledge of the internal combustion engine.
Right. I literally do not care about their driving art. What I care about is the system.
I care that the app accurately told me they were 3 minutes away so I didn't have to wait in the rain.
I care that the car is clean. I care that the GPS already knows the route so I don't have to navigate for them.
I care that the payment happens invisibly in the background.
My stress goes down so I can comfortably sit in the backseat and answer emails. I'm paying for a frictionless system? Is that what we're talking about when we say the product is confidence?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the exact perfect analogy. That is exactly what we are talking about.
Think about all the invisible systems required to make that Uber ride feel effortless to you.
The background checks, the real-time GPS routing, the integrated payment processing algorithms, the supply and demand pricing models.
You don't see any of it, but it creates the experience. Clean, invisible execution is the business version of smooth power.
A premium service always feels low friction to the buyer.
The moment a client feels like they have to actively manage the vendor, the moment they have to remind you of the site address or text you asking when the files will be ready,
Or decode a confusing, rambling email from your team, the vendor instantly stops feeling premium, no matter how incredibly sharp the final 4K footage is.
the client is ultimately buying the feeling of control over their own project.
Your internal systems, your conditional thinking, your 8 boards, your meticulous paperwork, all of that is the massive, invisible machinery working in the background to manufacture that feeling of control for the client.
That is just an incredibly clarifying way to look at it. Let's bring this all together because we have covered an immense, challenging amount of ground today.
We have traced the complete evolutionary arc of a professional, transitioning from relying on the raw, physical skill of operating a machine to mastering the sophisticated psychological art of operating a business.
The progression we've discussed is clear, and more importantly, it is unavoidable if you want to scale and survive in a complex industry.
It all boils down to what you are proving to the market. The pilot proves personal competence. They prove they, as an individual, can do the job.
The operations manager proves controlled execution. They prove the internal system can do the job safely.
But the business leader proves repeatability. They prove the system could do the job 1,000 times, safely, legally, and profitably across an entire market without their direct involvement.
That brings us to the end of our deep dive today. But before we sign off, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to chew on as you go back to your day.
Think deeply about your own work right now, whatever your specific profession happens to be.
If you took the concept of the founder rescue rate and ruthlessly applied it to your own life this past week, how many projects, how many internal team meetings, or how many fragile client relationships only survive because you personally swooped in to save them at the 11th hour?
If you were to completely disappear tomorrow, what is the very first thing in your business that would break?
That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.